What a party. Good morning. I think we fixed our audio challenges. I think. We'll see how these earbuds do with road noise. I turned up the brightness and contrast of my driving cameras. Don't have like a specific agenda per se. What time is it? 4:30? I'm driving from Boise, Idaho to Moscow, Idaho. Cool little funky town. I'm just leaving Boise. Moscow's a cool little college town. University of Idaho's there. My purpose in going is to work on a hybrid vehicle that was giving some challenges to another technician. So I am going to lend a second opinion on how to install a system. So come drive with me. Hang out with me. As the sun rises and I see a glint and a glimmer of the sun already beginning beginning to appear on the horizon. Of course, we are 2 days away. We are 2 days away from we are 2 days away from the summer solstice, right? Aren't we? Isn't the solstice on the 21st? I should get a confirmation on that. This is why I need people to come hang out with me while I drive. Because I'm streaming to YouTube, the Grow Kick channel. I can't remember if I had to call it Grow Kick Official or just Grow Kick because wherever Grow Kick, the simple six letter GROKIK, was taken, I opted to go with a Grow Kick Official handle. So on YouTube, it's either Grow Kick or Grow Kick Official. Same with Twitch. Same with X. So I'm using Restream to stream to. I'm using Restream to stream to YouTube, Twitch, and X. I got OBS going on my laptop in my car. Got my multi-camera set up on my vehicle with my MDVR for mobile DVR, which is a 12-volt DVR system with my input. I'll demonstrate. Turning on my driver's side turn indicator, it shows you my driver's side camera. I've got Starlink Mini on a Roam Unlimited subscription. I've been so impressed with Starlink. It's so cool to be in rural Idaho in a mountainous area where historically I would not have the slightest hope of having cell service, at least with T-Mobile. I feel like unless things have changed, I've used T-Mobile for years. Unless things have changed, Verizon has always been dominant in Idaho, then followed by AT&T and T, and then T-Mobile. But T-Mobile has the best data speeds, and quite frankly, they've gotten so much better. T-Mobile's gotten so much better with their coverage that it's just the best option for me. But Verizon has always had the best coverage. But I mean, it's great to have coverage if you're going to make some phone calls. But if the data is so slow that it's barely usable, then it doesn't do you much good other than that. And AT&T, when I tried it through an MVNO, mobile virtual network operator, I tried AT&T towers through an MVNO, and when it dropped hard. Like it also struggled with tower handoff. That's something that's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's determined by the phone or the network, but I feel like we shouldn't have these kind of issues in 2025, especially where like your phone will lock onto a network and a tower, and as you drive, the signal will get weaker and weaker to that tower, and your phone call will start cutting out, dropping. Let's say your phone says 4G, 2 bars of 4G LTE, and then you get 1 bar, and then it'll basically drop the call. But as soon as the call drops, you switch to 5G, like your phone antenna does. I don't know if that's common, if that happens to everybody, or if it's just me. I mean, it's obviously not just me. I'm sure it happens to other people. I'm just not sure if it's determined by your phone or by the network, or it'll lock you onto a weak tower until that connection closes, and then it will research and find a better one for you. Just interesting to think about. There's been some exciting stuff going on for sure. A lot of like I know my brand here, Grow Kick, this community that I want to build this around this brand, as I discussed on my last drive that I streamed. The Celtic knot I designed combines a heart and an up arrow, which is meant to symbolize the principle, the concept of increasing life, more life to all. And here in this brand, in this community, we minimize voices, influences, and entities that could be perceived as minimizing life. And we promote concepts, entities, and worldviews that promote increasing life. Because there are theologically and philosophically, what is vibrating in my cup holder here? Something is rattling around. Philosophically and theologically, as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I don't speak for my religious organization from a position of authority, and my views are my own. They don't represent the church. But one of my things that I love about the tenets of the church and the doctrine of the church, specifically as found in the Book of Mormon, but you can also find these same concepts in the Bible. There's this verse in, I believe, Second Nephi chapter. I want to say it's chapter 2, verse 16, that says that agency. It talks about agency. It says that man, and obviously adding women to that, mankind, we'll say, cannot act for himself or themselves, save, I'm just going to say they, it's easier. Mankind cannot act for themselves, save they were enticed by the one or the other. Meaning, and this is so congruent with a lot of interesting theories floating around out there. I can't remember who it was. It was either on Danny Jones or Joe Rogan. They had a guest on who I think was Robert Epstein, the Google guy. But he's talking about somebody's theory that's out there that our brains are just antennas. And that's consistent with this principle that we cannot actually do any necessarily good or bad thing, but especially good with my worldview and my theological understanding and beliefs. We cannot do any good thing on our own. We cannot act save we were enticed by the one or the other. Our quote unquote action simply needs to be our decision or choice on which influences we are going to follow. And God has a quote unquote actions we are going to follow. And God has a way of opening up to us the enticements or the influences we need in order to be set up for success. Oh, it was my container of Himalayan pink sea salt. That's what was vibrating. So, so God has a way to present to each one of his children. And if you are uncomfortable calling the, you know, I believe in God to the point where I am comfortable saying I know he is real. I know God is real. And I know that he is very involved in each of our lives. I'm comfortable saying that. But it's not epistemologically here. It's not a knowledge gained. It's not a tangible per se. Something I know through my senses, my sight, my sound, my. I believe so, and I talked about that on the last stream. Some of my evidences for that, in a sense, of the existence of God, but it has to do with something else I'm going to talk about, which is primarily faith. It could be summarized as faith, where I have sort of a goal that is in line with this community of increasing life. And I believe what God wants me to do. Mark Andreessen talks about this concept of your openness. What is your degree of openness? I don't think he's the genesis of that idea. It's just who is really the genesis of a good idea anyway. And we're gonna get to that. But I also am more and more in the camp of if you are certain about anything, I think that is a blind spot. And what I mean by that is it's okay to express certainty as long as, in my opinion, it is accompanied by the acknowledgement or the assumption or the recognition that it is a journey towards certainty, not a destination. Meaning, refrain from holding an absolute judgment on the merit of anything. in a sense. I think that has to do with Jesus saying, judge not, that ye be not judged. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Right? What I mean by that is, even if someone says, um, epistemologically, isn't it epistemology that says is the study of knowledge itself in philosophy, or the means of knowing in philosophy, in a sense, opposed to maybe etymology, which is like the journey it took to know something, and like the etymology of something is like its roots or how it's known. Epistemology is, can it even be known? Isn't that how it works in philosophy? Who can correct me on that? This is why we need a robust community where people can jump in and chat, and I can be like, chat, pull that up, because I could just do that with AI. I could set up. In fact, sometimes maybe I will set up like Grok or ChatGPT. They really missed ChatGPT. OpenAI really missed a branding opportunity to name their LLM. I mean, we've got Claude, we've got uh, Grok, we've got Gemini, and then there's Chat GPT. And I was even listening to the Diary of a CEO the other day, and he kept messing up. What's his name? Maybe that was him trying to go viral. But hey, look at those flaggers working hard at 4:50 a.m. There's like a RV, a motorhome up here that I'm stuck behind. Anyway, he kept saying Chat GTP is what he kept saying, and he was talking to an AI expert, so I was a little embarrassed for him. But who knows? Maybe they had a conversation beforehand where he's like, "I'm just gonna keep saying Chat GTP, even though I know it's Chat GPT, because we know it's gonna get clipped and go viral and stir up some frustrated people that complain that he can't get Chat GPT right." So it could just be a marketing strategy. Perhaps, and maybe not a bad idea. Not my style. Anyway, I could just talk to an LLM on voice mode while I drive, but it would be more fun if I had people here in this community to participate. So post on X, post on YouTube, post on Twitch in the comments, and because I have it set up going through Restream, it'll pop up on my chat feed so I can see your comments. So if someone can explain to me the difference between epistemology and etymology, what, or if I'm completely wrong on these concepts, correct me on it. That would be helpful, because I'm not a philosophy expert. I'm not a debate expert. I just have general understanding of these concepts, and I probably get it wrong most of the time. So it's helpful to have someone correct me, but I'll share it as I know it. I'll share it straight. So working backwards to peel this orange that I'm talking about. We were talking about Mark Andreessen and a degree of openness. And to me, I'm going to try to avoid passing a judgment of certainty and be comfortable with a lifelong journey in faith for more aspects of life than just religion and the existence of God, but for more than that, trying to make a determination on the goodness of something. Why do I have to pass judgment on the goodness? There are some short term, and definitely even the brand itself increasing life. As I indicated, if I feel like there's an entity or a message or an influence that does not lead to more life to all and less to none, then I believe it is disharmony with the universe and the flow of the universe, which is based off of gratitude, abundance, humility. I believe by espousing those principles of gratitude, abundance, and humility, one enters into a flow state with the universe. So it is necessary to make short term judgments, but you can acknowledge they're not absolute judgments, they're partial judgments. Something can be, in our current quick judgment, 80% good and 20% bad. So let's take the 80% that's good and let's roll it into something else. Let's snowball it into something else. And our determination of that judgment, since it's likely flawed, will change over time, of course. Should I try to pass this? Wonderful recreational vehicle. You can see the sun beginning to, not the sun, you can see the sky lighting up. We are coming into the longest day of the year, after all, which I believe to be June 21st. Someone correct me on that, but I see I've got like one viewer on Twitch. Hello. I hope you, especially, have an incredible day. Thank you for being here and listening to me ramble. But again, when it says there's one viewer, I would say maybe that's the restream service. So I don't know if the one viewer is real. But when I start streaming, it says 0 viewers. And then about 3 minutes in, it said I had one viewer on Twitch, while X still says 0, and YouTube doesn't give me feedback on current viewership. So as far as I know, there's one person watching on Twitch, and that's super rad. I don't know who you are, where you are in the world, what's going on. You might be a bot, but ping me and let me know if you're real. And thanks for being here. So I reserve the right to change my mind about anything and absolutely everything. And it's partly because my mind isn't entirely made up. Again, when it comes to when it comes to theology, I am pretty set in my ways, to tell you the truth. But that's because my foundation in theology is not based off of other people's opinions and perceptions as much as it could be if it was newly introduced to me. Meaning, I've built a theological foundation. I try to build it on Jesus Christ and the principles of revelation by the Holy Spirit. So I'm not like safe spiritually. These ideas are not locked in. And in fact, I try to separate these ideas from ego or arrogance or something that is very fragile and unstable. My religious understanding is not based on myself. I try to center it on Jesus Christ and build a foundation on Jesus Christ. So when I say I'm like kind of closed, like there's a lot of people who will attack my faith. I mean, I don't consider myself an apologist. I just want to acknowledge that I've spent years and a lot of time invested into trying to discover more light and truth and trying to maintain a high degree of openness, which, like, when we think of like blind faith, I think that there's real, you know, actual merit to the concept of blind faith, because even Jesus says we should become as little children, submissive, meek, humble, patient, full of love, willing to submit to all things. And so, in a sense, people like to say that blind faith is a negative, and the way that they mean it definitely what in most cases feels like it was intended to be negative. But in my case, I'm like, if you have the capacity to follow blindly hold on to that. Just make sure you're following. Well, that's a contradiction because if you're making sure you're following someone you believe is taking you in the right direction, then that's kind of the antithesis of blind following. That's like seeing following. I don't know what's the antonym of blind, because blind is a state. So what's a state of seeing? Uh, that's interesting. If you were going to use the antonym of blind, see, seeing, following, that doesn't make sense. To see, following, clear, following, observed, following. I don't know. Anyway, so here's where we're rolling into this. Is I'm trying. There's a lot. Again, the brand Grow Kick is increasing life, and my challenge is how do you take a community and content that is by definition controversial only in the sense that we are operating with a currency that flows against potentially mainstream transactions, but ultimately flows with the universe, so it's powerful. The idea of increasing life and gratitude, humility, faith, espousing those will put you into a creative flow state and make you a true mastermind and someone who can stretch and manipulate and modify and shape and sculpt your reality. But with that being said, we are in a oh gosh, we're in a culture and society that loves to amplify controversy. I was just seeing someone I follow on X complain about how they have, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, and anything that they post that is not controversial but is a net positive does not gain the traction or attention or virality does on the same level as something that they post that is controversial. So if they just post something that's very, very wholesome, nothing controversial about it, then man, I think my rotors are warped because if I'm going downhill and I hit my brakes gently, this this car will vibrate out of this reality. But trying to keep these earbuds in, they keep popping out. I need different size. I need different size like rubber little ear, whatever. Maybe I'll just have to wrap some duct tape around my face. That would be safe while driving. So anyway, this is gonna be like. So look, my only bet. Oh, oh. Here's a bot. Maybe you're a real person. If you're a real person, that'd be sick. It's an advertisement to buy viewers. Maybe next time, bot. No, I'm just kidding. I don't even know what would happen if you buy a viewer. It's just like it just feels so inauthentic and just like too gimmicky, too gamey. Like I want to work. I want to work for my viewers, you know? We got to build this thing the right way and build it organically. We're not trying to there's vaporware when you sell some software that doesn't exist yet with the intention of creating it. You're selling vaporware or a feature that doesn't exist that you want to implement and you sell that. So here we are not trying to floof market our way to a community. We are building it organically. And even just this logo with the heart and the up arrow is in and of itself an affirmation. So if I stick this thing on a hat, like an embroidered hat, and sell it in a store, it's not sensationalism. It just means increasing life. So wear that thing around and you have an affirmation right there on your head, on your forehead, where it just, you know, maybe we need like a sick ring. Imagine you have a ring with that logo. It just says, means to you increasing life. I just think that's just so cool. It's so wholesome. And the type of people that will attract are the type of people that I want in my life. That's all I'm saying. So, where I'm circling to is I'm super stoked about the Y Files guy. He was just on Joe Rogan a little bit ago, like a week or two ago. He was on Joe Rogan. My parents like the Y Files. I think it's shown up in my YouTube algos, my recommendations at some point a few times. But I heard about it first in a significant way from my parents who were like, "Hey, do you watch the Y Files? You should check it out. It's so much fun." So they have sent me a few links from time to time. Y Files guy, what's his name? AJ or something? I don't know. But he's cool. His little cute character, Hecklefish, that's cool. It's rad. But he did an episode and dropped it yesterday or the day before called Synchronicity. And it was so cool. I went and sat my 8-year-old in front of the TV. I'm like, this is it. Let us watch this thing together because I loved it. I loved it. It was so cool. And the way that he crafted it, the way he talked about it, he talked about Carl Jung's principle of synchronicity, just unexplainable, inexplicable. He tells a couple stories of just things that are so coincidental, like two twins that were separated at birth, but they lived the exact same lives, or just a higher number of coincidences than what would be randomly possible, statistically possible. The one that really blew my mind was a story of a girl like in the UK that like wrote her name and address on a balloon and let it go, and it was caught by someone like 140 miles away or something like that with the same name, same age, same affinities, and showed up wearing the same sweater. Had turns out had a pet hamster, same colors, favorite stuffed animal that was identical. Just crazy stuff that's like a glitch in the simulation. But he ties it into Carl Jung's principle of synchronicity. I have Carl Jung's. I ordered his red book. I've never read it. I should read it, but I'm not much of a reader. I have a difficult time sometimes with sustained effort required to invest in books. But even the Y Files guy brought up the New Thought movement, which I talked about extensively on the last stream. because one of my favorite books that's been the most impactful for me, because of its pragmatic and concise approach, is The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, published in 1910. For anyone who knows me, I will tell them in a heartbeat, this is the best mindset book. Now, there's another book that I've danced around, but I have not looked into. I have not read it. I own it. In fact, it's sitting there in the door jamb of my passenger door, the door pocket of my passenger door. It's called Alpha Awareness Training Results Book by Wally Minto, who has since passed away. Now, this thing was published in the 70s, I believe. And in fact, he even talks in the beginning of the book that I've read. I've read like 10 pages in, and I can't seem to get past 10 pages. I've tried various techniques and methods to try to force me to read the thing because it sounds awesome. And even the reviews on Amazon are like, this book changed my life. I haven't ever really been able to be productive, but this book fixed it for me. And that's what I need. But in the beginning of the book, he talks about the principle of circling your attention like a plane flying around a runway without touching down, without landing. So withhold your judgment. A lot of people will encounter something that is contrary to their view and then will discard all subsequent ideas from that source following the thing they didn't agree with. Whereas by doing that, they might miss something of value that would have been of value to them that followed the thing they disagreed with. Furthermore, the latter subsequent material might better inform or explain the original person's position on the item with which they disagreed. So, Wally Minto talks about the principle of just being patient and considering an idea and withholding your final judgment of disagreement, which is partly what I was talking about at the beginning. And then he goes in to talk about, instead of, as far as I know, he's one of the generators. He's one of the original guys in energy culture, mindset culture, to postulate or put forth the idea of be, do, have opposed, or is it be, have, do? Opposed to do, have, be. Meaning, if you want to flow with the universe, if you want to get fit, this is what I'm working on too. If I keep saying I want to lose weight, and Scott Adams was talking about this the other day too, this is really important, and Wallace Waddle talks about it in the book, but not the be, do, have, do, whatever be. This is how they explain it. But the principle of the universe not caring about the polarity of your idea, whether it's positive or negative. It doesn't care if you say, I want this or I do not want this. All the universe hears is the this. It hears the subject of the message. When you put it out there and you materialize it with your intention, with your vision, and your imagination, all it hears is the this, not the I do want this or I do not want this. So don't focus on the ideas of things you want to avoid. So when I say I want to lose weight, the universe just hears me put the idea of weight out there, which could mean I want less of it or more of it, but what it hears is weight. Weight, which is the thing I'm trying to lose. So the ambiguity perhaps to the universe, if the focus of the thing I want to lose is I'll probably retain it. But the be, do, have, do, be principle, whatever it is an example of, okay, so first of all, affirmations are important for training mindset. But instead of saying I want to lose weight, I've developed a little affirmation that I repeat to myself as often as I can remember of I am fit, lean, and what was it? Strong or something like that. What was it? Athletic. Athletic. So as often as I can, I tell myself, I am fit, lean, I am lean, I am athletic. Because that describes more of the state I want. And the phrase I am brings it in as if it's already there. And this isn't to lie to myself on my current state, because who actually defines reality, especially in a world where it is often so subjective? Someone can shape this. Your firm, this is why it's so ill advised to maintain a firm and rigid perception of this reality, because it is so malleable. It is unwise to develop a definite view of this is the way things are, because your view of the way things are in and of itself is subjective, and at best this reality is malleable. It means different things to different people. So the very concept of what is real cannot be comprehended by any one person or group of people. With that understanding, your view of reality is not comprehensive. My view of reality is not comprehensive. No one's view of reality is comprehensive. So, in a sense, by changing your perception of reality, you are influencing and shaping your reality. And this book, The Science of Getting Rich, it's in the public domain because it was published in 1910. And we can listen to the audiobook of it because although the audiobook was recorded more recently, the good folks over at LibriVox have generated audio recordings that are in the public domain, because LibriVox operates in the public domain with their excellent contributors and volunteers. Because even if a book's in public domain, I can't just go pull an audiobook version of it off of YouTube. Because if I were to read the open source audiobook, my production or performance of the reading is not covered under public domain fair use. But when LibriVox has volunteers with the express intent of making an audio book that is in the public domain, we can use it for whatever we want. So I could legit sit here. One of the reasons I love The Science of Getting Rich is when it's read as an audiobook, it's like only 2 hours to get through the entire book. You could practically go for a run or a walk every morning and use this book to train your mindset if you wanted to. If you wanted to. The point is, don't focus on what you don't want. Focus on what you want and be clear and definite in your vision. I'm not an expert in this, but the clearer and more definite and more specific your message is, the more effective it will be. So when I say I am, what's behind me? Is it this RV? Bro, the speed limit is 40 freaking 5 because we're in a construction area. So why are you riding my butt? I need to find a slow vehicle turnout because I'm going 5 over the speed limit, and this Yahoo is still riding my bumper. What do you think this is? Bumper cars? Okay, now it says end road work, and we're back up to 55 miles an hour. We are on Highway 55. I always thought that was funny. It's Highway 55 The speed limit is 55. So that's 1 unit of speed per 1 unit of name in the number in the name number. Who decided this should be Highway 55? Oh wow, that's cool. I see lights of a car on the top of a very steep hill. I've never seen a car up there before. It makes sense there would be a road up there. I've just never seen it. In the view, you can see the lighter, the morning light cresting over the mountain, and there are tail lights of a car and headlights literally at the top of that horizon on that mountain. I've never seen a car up there before. We have a ski mountain called Bogus Basin, which is like the funniest name for a ski mountain up in the mountain range north of Boise. And my parents' house sits on a ridge that has a clear view of Bogus Basin. And you, during ski season, especially as it gets dark earlier, there are so many switchbacks going in the forest on the way up to Bogus Basin that at nighttime you could sit on a couch in the living room with all the lights off and you could see the headlights and taillights flicker back and forth as the row of vehicles would hit the switchbacks. That was kind of fun. Man, we are in for a beautiful drive. I tell you what, this is one of my favorite drives going north through Idaho. We are going to see the Whitebird Mountain Range. We are going to go through Grangeville, which is random town in like the central panhandle. This is going to be a fun drive. Very scenic. And maybe on our way home, I will go through the old Whitebird. Maybe I'll stream while I go through the old highway that goes through Whitebird because they built a nice new one that's like a straight shot up the mountain, 4 lanes across with a center line, so effectively 5 lanes. But if you turn off either before or after that ramp, you can take the old road, which is like, man, how did trucks ever take this road? How did they transport stuff north and south in Idaho on this road? It's crazy to imagine because it is so curvy and so many switchbacks. Okay, so it's crazy to imagine because it's 45. I am going to pull over somewhere and let this RV behind me pass because they're still pressing me. They are still pressing me. So they just installed this light here at the Banks Loman intersection. I don't know how long ago. I've only noticed it recently. I'm gonna pull over right here. Here we go. Now we don't have to deal with those headlights in my rear view mirror for the whole trip. Who's gonna sneak up on us next? Anyway, so when I give myself the affirmation, I am fit, I am lean, I am athletic. That covers to me. Love these corners right here. After the Banks Loman intersection, there are 2 notably sharp, aggressive corners that you cannot see around, and people drive all together way fast on them. and you really hope that some idiot is not shaving a corner and gonna clip you on the way around. But thankfully, headlights provide a little bit of an indication that there is a car coming around the corner, so stay in your lane, which everyone should do anyway. Here comes the other one. It'll be up here maybe in about half a mile or so. It reminds me of playing. Uh, yeah, see, my one Twitch viewer went away, so I'm back to my all alone 00000 hero. It's on N64, the James Bond game. Was it GoldenEye? Anyway, my older cousins had an N64. I did not growing up, but when I would go over there, we would play 007 GoldenEye on the N64 in the DK mode, where it makes all of their heads ginormous and looks really funny as you're running around the map shooting each other. But they thought they were going to. They trolled me, and I didn't notice it until years later. It was hilarious. They're like, "Hey Spencer," they're like, "since you're new to the game, we're gonna tape your trigger down so that you don't have to worry about firing. You don't have to worry about hitting the trigger button to fire." So they taped my trigger down, so I was always out of ammo, and when I had ammo, they could see where I was at any time coming around the corner, which they could anyway because it was split screen, local split screen. But even still, I was always running out of ammunition all the time. So good job, cousins. You trolled me. Told me you were trying to help me out, threw me under a bus, but I didn't realize that until years later. I was like, oh, those turds. I was like, what, 5, 6, 7? I don't know how old I was. It's been so long. So that's what it's like when you're driving on this road. You just have to rely on people's headlights to see if they're coming around the corner. So when I create an affirmation that says I am fit, I am lean, I am athletic, that kind of covers the bases of what I want physically because it implies healthy. I could say I am healthy, I am whole, whatever. I could throw all that in. But for me personally, I chose I am fit, I am lean, I am athletic to train my mindset. So the example of be, do, have, or be, have, do. I can't remember if Wally Minto says it's be, have, do, or be, do, have. I don't remember what the order of the do and the have. But the world conventional reality says do, have, be. So if I want to define fitness, not in an evolutionary biological sense, as in fitness for reproduction, if I want to define fitness as the body image, shape, or state that I want to pursue, that's something that I thought was funny. I went to a National Boy Scout Jamboree in Fort A.P. Hill, Virginia in 2010 for the 100 Years of Scouting Jamboree. And there was this Scottish troop that came and visited our camp. And first of all, I learned then how loud Americans are because that was really my first interaction with international peers. I had interacted with immigrants from other you know, of typically older than myself, and who had lived in the United States for quite some time and immigrated from somewhere else. But I never interacted with peers of mine coming from like Scotland before. And the one thing that I noticed is I kept saying like, "What? Like what? Like what?" I was sitting there talking to these guys. I could barely understand them. And that's when I first realized, oh, the stereotype about super loud Americans is absolutely true, at least in my anecdotal experience, because I could not understand most of those guys for the life of me. I'm gonna pull over and turn down the brightness on my cameras. So where's the next turn? So I learned Americans actually are super loud in that anecdotal experience because all these Scottish Boy Scouts were super quiet. The other thing that I thought was funny is um, I think one of them mentioned as boys will. I think one of them was talking about an attractive girl in one of their classes, and I thought it was funny because they use fit as synonymously as American youth in my generation would use the word hot. And fit makes so much more sense. Whereas my peers growing up would say, wow, she's really hot. The Scottish troop said, she's really fit. Or there's this fit girl in my class. Interesting subject to talk about, but my point was those were my two observations from the Scottish troop. One, they speak very quietly, and Americans are very loud. And two, go back to eventually the relays are going to click in this MDVR to flip us back to non night vision. When they have a change of light exposure, this will be fine for now. I'll just darken it a little bit. So when they have a change of light exposure, you can hear a little tiny relay. I'm going to let this fat cement mixer pass me. There's a square body. What are we looking at? A Ford extended cab. Is that 350? Is that a 150? Woohoo! 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 We're getting some morning light. I think it'd be sweet if I did more like super early morning stream drives and could get like international watchers, followers, whatever. Anyway, so back to my what I'm putting out there into the universe. So the traditional view of the manipulation or modification of reality is the David Goggins way. I'm sitting there like David Goggins, and I say, piece of, I'm a fat turd. Am I going to do something about it? You get out there, you work your butt off, you change it, you change your reality, you're doing things. So some people would say David Goggins starts doing exercise. He wants to join the Navy SEALs. He starts doing exercise and then having fitness and greater health as a result of doing the exercise. Once he does the exercising and has a better state of health, Now he has permission to be healthy and can say, I am healthier than I was. I am better off than I was. But if you want to flow with the universe, I'm not saying that's what David Goggins is. That's an example. I would argue he probably was flowing with the universe, maybe consciously or subconsciously, and I'll explain. I'll explain. So I'm not saying David Goggins did do have B. I'm using him as an example to say here are two paths. I'm not sure which one he took, but one flows with the universe and does not have the vibe of having to climb uphill. So if you think of a wave, it's like you can swim behind a wave and try to catch up to it. Good luck. Or you can swim in front of the wave and just try to stay in front of the wave and have the wave push you, right? So when you're living in do have be world, it might feel like you're behind a wave swimming to try to catch up. But if you're in the be do have or have be have do world, then it's like you're swimming in front of the wave and it's pushing you along. So one path is David Goggins sat on his couch, said, I'm a fat turd. He uses other language, which I won't use. He said, I'm going to get off my butt and I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do exercise, have greater health, and then be a Navy SEAL, be a Marine, be healthy. I will eventually attain a state. Whereas what Wally Minto says, and again, forgive me, I'm just going to pick one, whether it's do or have, that might be important. In fact, why don't we correct this? Why don't we correct it right now? The book is sitting there. I'm going to pull over next chance I get. Hang on. Let's settle this once and for all, shall we? This concept is not talked about in my favorite book, The Science of Getting Rich. But again, The Science of Getting Rich is a title that doesn't really do it credit. It's a mindset book on how to create and be grateful. So that's what it is. I mean, The Science of Getting Rich just sounds like, I don't know. It just, I feel like it can be misunderstood or does it a disservice. It probably did well for its time for explaining what it was and again, marketing. But it's more apt, in my opinion, to call it there was a good turn off. I just didn't see it in time. It's more apt to call it the Flow with the Universe book or the Mindset Trainer book or whatever. All right. The purpose of this pullover is to settle once and for all. Anyway, I talked to Wally Minto's passed away. He used to teach courses based off of these principles. And I think people like Robert Kiyosaki went to copyright 1976 by Arlo W. Minto. I can't remember if Wally Minto and Arlo Minto are the same person. I think W is the middle initial for Wally. Could be a brother. I can't remember. I did do a deep dive. Actually found his family that holds the rights to this book. And asked them for permission to do the audiobook, but they never got back to me. Because I'd love to read this as an audiobook because it's not available as an audiobook. But the problem here is it says right here, the following public classes are taught by the author Wally Minto: Alpha Awareness Training, Results Training, De-Stress Seminar, Postgraduate Training Seminar. Alpha Awareness Training and Results Training are also available in cassette tapes from one of Wally's actual class presentations. I'd love to get my hands on those. If anyone has those, that would be sick to listen to those and maybe digitize them. You may order the results book for $8, the Alpha Awareness Training Book for $13, and cassette tapes from Alpha Awareness Drawer G, Susanville, California. Order forms on page 172, 173, as one does when the copyright is, what was it, 1974? 1976. Split the difference. But the problem is somewhere in here at the beginning it says that the author reserves the right. Yeah. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced or transmitted in any form or by any means without permission in writing. Permission to teach classes based on this reserved by the author. So that's what made me contact his family to be like, yo, can I do an audiobook of this? Mm. Yeah, see, this was always counterintuitive to me because he flipped the do and the have to something that didn't make as much sense to my brain. So I modify it a little bit in a way that makes sense to me. Yeah, his is even more. His is even more affixed. He starts with have, which is even more concrete in the and when he's giving the example of how not to flow with the universe, he says you have to start with have, which is what a lot of us do. Which makes sense. It does make sense. It's just even more counterintuitive because it starts with the worst example of not having agency at all. Whereas you have what you have and you can't change it, which makes more sense since it's a matter of which makes more sense since it's a matter of how not to flow with the universe, right? Meaning this, I could say right now, either way, I would if I wanted to force reality. Oh, a deer! Wow, is it safe to show that on camera? I'd have to back up and flip around, which I'm not going to do because there might be a car motoring up behind me at 55 miles an hour. So I'm not going to do it. But there's a deer right there. That was cool. Um, Basically, the most limiting view of reality is you either have what you have or you don't. And reality is fixed, it's not malleable. So if I say, I can't do rich people things because I don't have money. So this is the way Wally Minto explains it in the book, which makes sense. The bad way to look at it is have. You have to have money. If you do, then you do rich people stuff. And if you're doing rich people stuff, then it means you are a rich person. Your state is that of richness. So, in order to be that, you have to be doing the type of things that those people do. And in order to do it, you have to have it in the first place. So it's like, I can't be rich because I don't do rich people stuff. Because in order to do it, I have to have it. So, when he's talking about the wrong way to approach things, you start with have and move to do and move to be. So, in David Goggins is in my example of David Goggins, not saying he did this, he may have taken the other path, which is the path we're advocating for. If he said, I do not have health, therefore I cannot do healthy things. I cannot run the marathon. I cannot do this. I cannot do this. I can sit here and eat a pizza and watch the TV, but I can't do healthy things because I don't have health. And I'm definitely not in a healthy state. I be fat, slobby, unhealthy, whatever. And he could have just sat comfortably in that mindset of a fixed reality because it is based off of his own observation. You look down, you see a fat belly. I have a fat belly. So I call it a belly. That's a weird word. I treat the word belly kind of like other people hate the word moist. It's just a weird word. It kind of makes me uncomfortable. Like, I have a belly. Like, belly is just such a, ew. Something about it just doesn't sit. It doesn't sit right with me. Um, anyway, but you look down, you're like, I look fat. I have an unhealthy body. I'm going to do unhealthy things and be unhealthy. But nay, nay. Anyone who understands you can create your reality into what you want in life will flip that process and start with the being. So, in the David Goggins example, that call to action that he felt of I am capable of so much more, the way to flow with the universe to achieve those results is at some point he heard about the Navy SEAL program and said, I want to do that. I don't want to be unhealthy anymore. And so you could make the argument that if he did it in a way that was in harmony with the universe, as he's sitting there, fat, lazy, sloppy on the couch, not achieving anything in life by his own definition and admission, if you want to do it in a way that flows with the universe, which is likely what he did to achieve the incredible results he has, you start with the what am I doing here on the couch? I am David Goggins. I am a Navy SEAL. I don't belong in this fat, sloppy, lazy body. I don't belong on this couch. I'm letting this person pass me. I don't belong here because it's not my state of being. It's not who I am. So you start with the being, decide who you want to be, and have a definite vision and a determination and a deep and profound gratitude to be there, whatever it is in life. So if David Goggins is sitting there fat, lazy on the couch, he says, I am a Navy SEAL. I am a Marine. It is who I am. And if you make that determination and if you are grateful for it and truly believe it, you submit that message to the universe, or to God, to the universe. And I want to emphasize here quickly, it doesn't matter if to me if you say God or the universe, because in my worldview, they're both. You could say I like my worldview, and this is something again you can disagree with me, and that's fine. You can hold your own beliefs, your own views, but I believe that God and the universe are different things, but they both exist in the context of what I'm talking about. I believe God created the universe, or he is also using the universe. Whatever way you want to look at it, God and the universe are separate sort of concepts and entities, but if you want to use them synonymously and interchangeably, that's fine. I will do that sometimes because I believe God is the God of the universe and controls the universe. But whether you view the universe as something that he created and gave to us as a tool or a sandbox in which to play, or whether you want to view it as the universe is there and is immutable and God plays in the sandbox of the universe just like he teaches us how to do. I consider outside of that to be somewhat immaterial. It doesn't really matter. The point is, there is a God, there is a universe, and we can play in the universe and manipulate it. And God has shown us how to do that throughout all of history. So that's my view. So when you're submitting these requests to shape and bend and manipulate and sculpt and create your reality, don't view it as, hey, I'm not in this state yet, but once I have this, so again, the next step that most of us would take with the traditional view, this is how we're flipping from beings to be acted upon to beings to act. Maybe the transitory phase between this is flipping the have and the do to be, I can do healthier things to eventually have a healthier body. And once I do, and again, I'm only using health as an example here. It applies to wealth, it applies to status, it applies to power, whatever you're trying to attract, more love, better relationships. I can flip the do and the have to, if I'm fat David Goggins sitting uh, on my couch, I could say, okay, I do not currently have a healthy body, but if I start doing healthy body things, my body will become healthier, and once it does, I will be healthy. So that's the next transitory phase when you start realizing that you can, through your actions, manipulate this reality. Will default to flip the have and the do to say, okay, I've changed from I do not have a healthy body, therefore there's nothing I can do. I'm gonna sit on this couch. I'm gonna do fat people things because I'm fat. I have a fat body, so I do fat people things, and I be fat. I be fat. Um, so the next step is you can flip the do and the have and say, I do healthier things, and eventually I have a healthier body, and then I can be healthier. But now, the ultimate way to flip this on its head and accomplish your goals and develop your systems, as Scott Adams would say, is to start with the being. So, fat David Goggins sitting on his couch became a Navy SEAL, became a Marine up here first, up in his mind first, in his mindset. And again, I don't necessarily know which path he took or takes today, but I would argue, just based off of his results that I see, I would argue that's the approach that he took. I would argue he probably chose the path of least resistance, which is actually flowing with the universe. Although you might say, well, his mindset and his message is definitely not the path of least resistance. That's not what I mean. I mean mindset wise. If David Goggins, because there's evidence of this, because he said he was disgusted with himself. He was disgusted with his fat, unimpressive self. So, in order to get to that state, he must have resolved in his mind, whether subconsciously or consciously, that I am a Navy SEAL. I am a Marine. Therefore, what am I doing in this fat body? What am I doing on this a Marine? Doing in this doing on this cat, and I'm going to go to work. And he talks about it. I've never read his book and talk and read it because it sounds amazing. All the interviews I've heard him do promoting it, and I've heard him tell his story on Joe Rogan and stuff. Uh, but when he says he basically became uncomfortable in his skin, and I would argue that that's an indication that he had already shifted his mindset to be in a state of being. So if you can hold your state of being in your mind and be grateful that you're receiving it or have already received it as if you have. That is the most powerful tool to manipulate your reality. It's to bring yourself into harmony with God and the universe by by adopting a profound feeling of gratitude for the thing that you wish to receive as if you have already received it. There's a lot of examples of this scripturally with my theology. It talks about how Jesus descended below all things. All things. There isn't a single thing that you can experience in this life that Jesus cannot experience with you and fully understand you and the situation better than you can. That's my faith, doctrinally speaking, and understanding that. There isn't anything that we can experience that he hasn't also felt and can entirely appreciate with us and appreciate the difficulty we're going through. So it says in the Book of Mormon that, and this is proven throughout history too, that when and in the Bible, when we cast our burden on the Lord and say, I'm experiencing this terrible thing, I'm going to package it up, I'm going to hand it off to the Lord because He's already experienced it. He's descended below it, He's overcome it. I don't have to because He already has. So Jesus, when he was on earth, completed the act that we call the atonement, which is the suffering in the garden, the crucifixion on the cross, and the resurrection, all wrapped into this package that we call the atonement. He suffered for our sins. He took upon himself death, both spiritual and physical, through his suffering in the Garden of Gethsemane and his crucifixion on the cross, and he overcame those two forms of death and was resurrected as part of that process. And the first being to be resurrected and receive a glorified body again, to live again, tangibly, physically. So, through this process of the atonement, you can use that as a catalyst to empower you to say, I don't need to suffer this stuff. First of all, you're not alone. Jesus knows exactly what you're going through. He's descended below it. There isn't anything you can experience that he hasn't experienced worse. So cast your burden on the Lord. He will take it from you. It says in the Book of Mormon that even people used this process of the enabling, empowering atonement of Jesus Christ even before he completed the atonement. So people who lived before Christ could talk of Christ, rejoice in Christ, teach of Christ, prophesy of Christ, and use his atonement even though it hadn't even taken place yet. They were able to rejoice, and that's the interesting thing is in I believe and we believe that there is no time dimension in God's realm, worldview, whatever, which is unfathomable. What does that actually mean? But it's like, it's like in chemistry when they try to explain, okay, an electron is not actually like necessarily a particle, it's more of like a wave. It's more of like a wave in a sense where it's like you apply something to a molecule, it gets applied all over pretty much uniformly at the same time, like a state change. That's kind of like how something as impactful as the atonement gets applied through history. It's like, yeah, there was a time in which the atonement was completed, but it's an infinite atonement, and somehow it retroactively applies infinitely to everyone everywhere. Time and everywhere. Completed it. It didn't start when he completed it. He did complete it, but it applies everywhere all at once. It's kind of hard to explain. It's like imagine you drop a drop of food coloring in a pitcher of water, and it instantly applies to the entire pitcher and instantly changes that color. I'm gonna pull over again. So many people pressing me, man. People just speed so fast on this road all the time. I mean, even if I wasn't doing a stream right now, I would not be driving this fast. I'd be observing the speed limit. But people just love to just ride my tail. It's like an ongoing thing, uh, all the time when I'm on this road. I'm never the fastest car on this road. Just never. Never have I ever been. It just it seems so weird to drive so quickly when there could be a rock in the road, there could be a deer. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like I don't feel good about driving super fast. Anyway, so similar to that is so that's kind of like a principle where even before Jesus had completed the atonement, we could. So where are we right now? We are coming up on a small town called Cascade. So we are out of the, I guess, the initial mountain area, and now we're in this valley. We're gonna come up on Cascade, then we're gonna go through a pass, and we'll be in a city called Donnelly. But anyway, that's what it reminds me of when I think about be, do, have versus have, do, be. I think about the power of the atonement of Jesus Christ to allow us to change, to repent, the love of Jesus as a catalyst to help us create. And I think of it as the parable of the talents, where it's like God gave talents to certain people and blessed those who multiplied their talents and cursed those who buried their talents and did not multiply them. So God has given us this pattern or this formula for increasing life, the act of talent accumulation. And talent in the purpose of the parable is a currency, by the way. It's just imagine it as a representation of value. It doesn't necessarily mean a talent as in a skill like playing the piano or anything. It's in reference to value. So when we talk about increasing talents, we're talking about increasing value, whether it's in the form of energy or uh, just increasing value. That's all we need to say about it. So we have been given the tools for increasing life. And again, I feel like my theology is supported by this mindset training and is an even a catalyst for it. Like you can learn all this stuff about be, do, have rather than have, do, be. You can learn all of this stuff. But in my opinion, the most effective way to implement it is to believe in and follow Jesus Christ. And that's not why we believe in and follow Jesus Christ. We're not fair weather friends. We're not just going to reject it when things get hard. The point is, if you center your life on Christ and his atonement and realize that he's suffered for your sins and so that you don't have to, you can cast your burden on him and he'll relieve you of it. And when you also understand that we cannot act for ourselves, save we are enticed by this influence or that influence, and the entire sum of our responsibility and role is to simply choose which influences to adopt and follow. which signals to accept and process. That's the extent of our role in this puzzle. God is able to do his own work, and he is going to go on doing his work. But which signals we allow and follow is our decision to make. And constantly trying to upgrade your signals that you have access to. If you follow the next best step that's in front of you right now, it will take you to progressively better and better and brighter places. We should be focused on receiving more light and love and knowledge and understanding in our lives, more intelligence in our lives, more understanding, more charity, more love. So, when I hear the parable of the talents, especially as shared in the context of preparing for the second coming of Jesus Christ, we must embrace this principle of increasing life or more life to all. That's why I am going to make this logo here into a hat. I'm going to wear the hat. That way, everywhere I go, it's like I'm taking an affirmation of increasing life. It's a perfect brand or symbol of the type of movement or cause or image that I'm comfortable espousing. My cameras are not doing this scenery justice. There's a light mist on the ground ahead. I wonder if I can set up my scene. In the last video, I said I'm going to give myself like a momentary switch button to trigger the front facing camera. So if I see like a beautiful, in fact, I'm going to set that up. I'm going to set that up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to set that up. Uh, but what I was going to say though is instead of doing a momentary switch to trigger my forward facing camera, I should set it up in OBS as a different scene where I just take the quadrant with the forward facing camera and blow it up. It'll have a lower resolution if I do it that way, but we'll see what the quality comes out to be. If I take just what you're viewing right now on the upper left and I blow up that image of the forward facing camera, it might get a little bit blurry, but let's see what quality we end up with. And then I can switch between the scenes and OBS when I want to show you something really cool. So next intersection I come to. Next intersection I come to, I'm going to try this. Here's a road. Does it look like a private road? That one is. I'm not going to pull in there. What are we looking at? Goslin Road. This looks legit. I'm going to turn my blinker on. We're going to turn on to Goslin Road while I set up a new scene on OBS. Hopefully the audio quality is decent. All right, what are we looking at? I'm going to hit the new scene. The name of the new scene is Forward. Nice. Okay, so here's this scene. If I hit, okay, so it keeps my voice. I'm going to add a video source. This is so much fun. OBS is so much fun. I love open source stuff. Video capture device. Add existing. Multicam source. Noise. I'm going to blow this up. Cam source. gonna what? Hmm, super rad. I could create one for each little. What? No, I could create one for each. Good enough. Close enough for now. Heh, quality doesn't look terrible. I must say, the quality does not look terrible. Here comes a car. Let's turn it around. Backing up. That's my backup camera. You don't see it frequently because I'm mostly just driving. All right, so now if I click on my forward camera, now you can see a little bit. Oh, it takes over for obviously the input triggers when my blinker's on. But now, aha, the quality is not terrible. It'd be better if I blew it up so you could see it in 1080p. But right now you're seeing it as a quarter of 1080p. So it's not going to look incredible, but it's going to give just a clearer view. Oh, nice. So if I want to show a better view of just the forward camera, again, you're viewing it as a quarter of 1080p. So it's not the best. It would be better if I made my trigger on the forward facing camera, but for now, this will do. Sick. Aha. I smell some skunk. I love the smell of skunk. I don't think everyone does, right? Maybe it's like genetically determined, like appreciation for cilantro. Some people really like cilantro. I'm in that camp. My wife's in the camp that says cilantro tastes like soap. So, Scott Adams was talking about this a couple days ago too, how the universe does not respect the polarity of your idea. You say, I want to lose weight or I want to gain weight. All the universe hears is weight. So you can send an ambiguous message to the universe and get an ambiguous result. Or if anything, since you're focusing on weight and the universe tends towards increasing life, in my opinion, if you flip a coin, you're more likely to lean into the more weight bucket if your focus is just on weight, because you'll get more of what you focus on. So, therefore, my affirmation of I am fit, I am lean, I am athletic. That's to train my mindset and also to be grateful. And you want to know what? If I remember to repeat that to myself, what I'll automatically find is that I remember to improve my posture. Isn't that funny? If I say to myself, As often as I remember, I am fit, I am lean, I am athletic. Surprise, surprise, wouldn't you know, I end up improving. I'm going to use the restroom in this gas station. I end up improving dramatically my posture. I end up standing up straighter, arching my back a little bit more while I drive because I tend to have a round lower back while I drive, kind of slouching in my seat. So I'll remember to sit up a little taller, a little straighter. I tend to kind of a little taller, a little taller. There's two Coca-Cola trucks. They must be stocking up this stinker station. Hey, it actually says Twitch was unable to connect. That's kind of rare. All right, 1 second. I'll be RB. I'm not gonna walk around with Bluetooth. How we doing? We back with audio? Stayed connected the whole time? See, I could get uh, using like Google Voice or not Google Voice. Google. They don't call it Google Duo anymore. Google Meet. I could use Google Meet and do conference calls with people while I drive, piped through the computer audio. That would be fun. I could interview people while I drive. Hmm? Oh, but anyway, mindset, increasing life, my overstrained alternator. If you hear any wild beeping right now, it's because my battery on my battery monitor is fluctuating right now between 12.1 volts. I wonder if my system is consuming power faster than my idling engine alternator can produce it. Now I'm back to 13.7 volts. Now I'm back to 12.1 volts. See, this is something I've known. I've known for quite some time that I unplugged my laptop and it stopped drawing as much power. I've known for quite some time that my alternator and I know for sure my vehicle battery is like 660 cold cranking amps, but right now it's testing at like 160 cold cranking amps. It's an old battery. It's Group 24. I have several Group 24 F batteries at my house. I just need to charge one up and swap it in. Clean up the terminals too. They're all corroded. But my next level action plan is to actually. So this is Cascade. We are driving through Cascade right now. Did I already pass? Last time I came through here was like I think it was Monday. I think I just drove through here on Monday. Why am I splitting the difference? Flying airplane here, going in the middle of the road. I was here Monday, yes. And I went to, I got a medium sized pizza at Rio's Pizza here in Cascade. And I got the combination pizza. It was quite, whoa, who's this? Sup, dude? Where are you going? Who is this? Uh, Shrek DLC? What? What am I reading here? Sup, dude? Where are you going? If I know you personally, I would address you, but I don't actually know your username. And if you're some person that just joined to see what's going on, sick. I have my phone turned off right now. It's charging. I am I am Charek. Do you say it Charek or Charek? I'm calling, or is it Sharek? Anyway, I'm calling it. One is Charek. Two is Charek. Tell me if it's one or two. Is it Charek or Charek? And you said I am the best. I agree. You are the best. I'm not I'm not going to dispute that. I'm just going to accept it wholesale. So Charek is the best. Yes. Oh, Sharek. Share Sharek. So is it Sharek or is it Sharek? Sharek. Anyway, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but Sharek. Oh, someone else is popping up. What are we driving to Moscow for, pal? Moscow, Idaho. Thanks for commenting. Twitch. Shrek. Okay, Shrek. We've got Shrek here. Now I gotta tell you guys, because it's on my laptop, my chat, I might miss some of your messages just because I am driving, so I'm sorry if I have to ask you to if you have to send me a message a couple times. So I'm driving from Boise, Idaho to Moscow, Idaho to actually uh, do some vehicle electronics work on a Toyota Prius. We have a technician that's up there in Moscow who had some questions and was having some trouble with a Toyota Prius. Hybrid tech can be funky when you're doing vehicle electronics, but I would say what takes up most of my time from day to day definitely is doing vehicle electronics installation of GPS trackers, dash cameras, ignition interlock device, breathalyzers, like when someone gets charged with a DUI. backup cameras, multi-camera systems like what I'm piping through OBS right now to restream. This multi-camera system that I have on my vehicle. If I, you'll see like the screen, what you're seeing from, uh, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, you thought I was driving to Moscow, Russia, or what? What makes sense? Moscow, Russia. Did you know there's the which Moscow I'm going to makes the most sense, or which part of the vehicle electronics makes the most sense? But anyway, that would be funny. That would be funny either way. Yeah, I hope you meant Moscow because that would be hilarious. Yes, I'm driving from Boise, Idaho to Moscow, Russia. I have like this chitty chitty bang bang '97 Honda Accord where I'm gonna somehow turn this into an aqueous vehicle and cross between Alaska and Russia and drive to Moscow. Yes, yeah, Shrek says yes. But yeah, I'm driving to Moscow, Idaho. It's a cool little college town with the University of Idaho. Their mascot is the Vandals, which is kind of sweet. Um, yeah, yeah, no, that's where we're going today. So thank you guys for. Yeah, you thought I was driving to Moscow, Russia initially. Yeah, that would be quite the feat, and admittedly far more impressive than what I am doing. But at least you can appreciate some scenic views going through Idaho. See, we can drive. Where are you guys from? State, country, whatever. Tell me where you're from because we can go on road trips together. I can show you on the Idaho National Laboratory. They do a whole bunch of nuclear research, and they have a decommissioned reactor that they turned into a museum where you can go on a self-guided tour. If you look up the EBR1 reactor, that's Echo Bravo Romeo hyphen one reactor. If you just Google that, you can see pictures of it. But I always tell people like, hey, if you're ever gonna come visit Idaho, I have question. What's your favorite animal? You are stationed in Alaska. Are you in the military? That would be cool. You're stationed in Alaska because station could mean a lot of different things, right? Um, company you work for has you stationed there, but typically, I feel like when people say they're stationed somewhere, I feel like it's typically military service. Question: what's your favorite animal? Um, but yeah, the EBR1 reactor. If you ever visit Idaho, I could give you a list of things to go visit because I've lived here my whole life, with the exception of 2 years. I actually lived in Cape Town, South Africa, on a mission. I was a missionary there for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from 2012 to 2014. Other than that, I've lived in Idaho my entire life, and I know this state very well. So if you're ever going to come visit, I can give you a list of interesting things to check out that are off the beaten path and are not the typical touristy things that people go look at. So the EBR1 Reactor Museum is near the Craters of the Moon National Park, which is also another really cool destination. It's not too far from Stanley, Idaho. If you look up like Redfish Lake in Stanley, Idaho. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I'm jealous of you. Okay. Coast Guard Puddle Pirate. I'm not sure what Puddle Pirate means. It sounds epic. I gotta tell you, I am 2 generations removed from military service. Both of my grandpas were in the army during the Korean War. One of them actually was deployed to Korea and was working doing destructive ordnance destruction, detonating unexploded ordnance He was a captain, and the other one ended up not having to actually physically go to Korea. But my dad didn't serve. I haven't served, so I physically go to Korea. But my dad, thank you for your service. I know it's cliche when people say that, but I sincerely mean that because yeah, I mean, just thank you for your service. And I'm jealous because Alaska is the one state I haven't traveled to because I, for my work doing vehicle electronics and because of the position I'm in and the nature of what I was doing, I literally traveled to every state, including Hawaii, with the exception of Alaska. Alaska is the one state I have not been to. And when I see videos and content coming from there, it just looks so incredible. Favorite animal, though, back to your question, I do not have a favorite animal. By the way, if there's latency in this stream or if I drop, I've got a Starlink Mini with the Roam Unlimited subscription, and I've only used it one other day for streaming from my car. So if I drop, that's why. But so far, it's been doing great for my purposes. Favorite animal, though, finally, I can address your question. That's a tricky question. It really is. It seems like it should be simple, but it's not for me. I do not have an obviously dominant favorite animal. I would have to do some very deep soul searching. You know what? Kind of more, kind of more out there. I like a capybara. I like a capybara. Very, very, very large rodent, like a rodent of unusual size from Princess Bride, except not trying to chomp your arm off. There's just something about a capybara as a super, super large rodent where they're just sitting there and you're watching them walk around in their swamp water, and it's like there's just something about a capybara that just speaks to me. It's like a sea pig. I don't know. I don't know, but let me know what you think. In fact, I like capybaras so much that my sister bought me like a capybara shirt. So I have a shirt that's like an island looking shirt, but it's got capybaras all over it. And I think that's great. I love that shirt. I don't know if you're still here. Shrek. Shrek. You might be gone, Shrek, but either way, thanks for joining in. That was cool. That was really cool. That was really cool, man. And again, thank you for your service and keep rocking it up there and stationed in Alaska. I've heard crazy stories of people. I was talking to this guy that like was in charge in the oil industry. He was in charge of inspecting and doing QC on pipes. I can't remember if it was natural gas pipes or what, but he would tell me that he had crazy stories. He said that he would go inspect these gas pipes for leaks, for damage, just assess their condition generally. The reason I was talking to him was because he was doing some landscaping. He owns a landscaping business, and I stopped and talked to him on the street for a minute as I was out for a walk, and we ended up talking for about an hour. And he told me about his experience working up in Alaska inspecting pipes, and he said it paid incredibly well. He said he would drive around in this vehicle, and he had to keep these weapons with him with the express purpose of in case a bear showed up, right? And where he was saying that like in the wintertime, you get like 3 hours of sunlight or something, and it's just dark all the time. And he said you lose all sense of time and circadian rhythm and whatever else have you. And he had crazy stories. He had crazy stories. Anyway, yeah, I'd like to go visit Alaska someday. If no other reason than just to say I checked it off my list of destinations. The one thing I will say is for a while there, near the end of traveling aggressively, I started getting so consumed with my work that I had zero time to appreciate where I was or do anything meaningful. But there was a period of time when I had some time to try to appreciate where I was at, and I would try to find many times without local consultation, try to find something that I could define as like the heartbeat of a city or a place. So obviously, when I went to Memphis, I visited Beale Street because, everybody knows about Beale Street and Memphis. And when I visited New Orleans, I went to the French Quarter and I got some crawfish etouffee. And I listened to that, what do they call that organ thing on top of a steamboat? There was this guy playing this, what do they call that? A harmonium or something? It's not a harmonium, but there's this guy playing this thing that's like an organ that just sits up there and plays music on the steamboat. I wonder if Shrek works for the Coast Guard in Alaska and my stream says driving to Moscow. Maybe he was just checking in on me. What are we driving to Moscow for, bud? Wouldn't that be funny? We better check this guy out, make sure he's not doing anything super weird. Like, no, nope. Unless you say super weird is trying to train mindset and working on affirmations and have a brand called Increasing Life. But it's a better story if I say, or if I want to think to myself that Shrek popped in just to see what I was doing driving to Moscow. But no, it is Moscow, Idaho, not Moscow, Russia. Internationally, I've been to Canada. I've been to Canada. I mean, in fact, we're not going to be far off of the Canadian border today. I mean, what, maybe 3, 4 hours away from it, up in northern Idaho. But no, I'm not driving to Moscow, Russia. That would be quite the feat, and I am quite ill-equipped for such a venture. Nor would I be allowed to cross the border. I don't even know what would be involved to get into Russia. Do you have to have a? I mean, I have a passport. It's not with me, but I would imagine you would have to have a visa and explain what your intentions were in being there. I'm not opposed to visiting. The only places I've been internationally is Canada and South Africa. I've never been, like, obviously I to get to South Africa I went through Heathrow in London, but you can't count an international airport as visiting the nation where the international airport was located. So even though I was in Heathrow, I don't count that as visiting London. I wish my layover would have been longer and I could have just gone out, but I wouldn't have done that anyway, given the nature of my trip to go down there as a missionary to South Africa. But man, that was super cool though, being in South Africa for from 2012 to 2014. But yeah, no, Canada and South Africa are the only other countries I've visited other than the United States. But within the United States, I've been to every single state except for Canada. I mean, woo, that was a little bit edgy. Edgy. No offense, good old Canadians up there. I misspoke. I meant Alaska. Alaska. I have many good friends and clients and business people in Canada. So no, Canada is not, as Trump said, the 51st state. Although I will say, as far as the American way of co-opting the best parts of every culture and claiming them for ourselves, I am slightly disheartened that Putin has not become more of a cultural mainstream thing in the United States because poutine is amazing. Who does not like gravy, French fries, and cheese curds? So if I want to build my community, I guess I just need to say I'm driving to Moscow, and then everyone thinks it's Russia, uh, and then people will be like, "What's this guy doing?" And surprise, it's Moscow, Idaho. Take a look at this scenery. There's the forward camera. Again, I can't repeat it enough. It's a quarter of 1080p. It'd be higher resolution if I actually set up the forward facing trigger to trigger that view. So we just passed through the small town of Donnelly, wasn't it? Weren't we just in Donnelly? I wasn't really paying attention. I think we just went through Donnelly. The next large ish city, actually, we might already be coming into McCall. I do need to speed up on this straight away. I was too absorbed looking at the scenery. Anyway, the whole brand is we should have well established by now. Cheerio, Ram is increasing life, more life to all, less to none. We find the good parts of everything, and together we are looking to create rather than compete for what has already been created. As I spoke of in the last stream, to me it's quite easy if you take a historical geological perspective. If you want to believe that the infinity of the universe is at our fingertips as far as the potential for creation, then you need not look back any further than the Archean eon when historical geologists theorize that there was a period of water in which there was a uniform layer. There was a period of time in which a uniform layer of water covered the entire globe. And according to LLMs, there is some dispute that this period of time occurred. but I believe it to be generally accepted. At least it was when I had my historical geology class in college. What our textbook said and professor said, that during the Archean eon there existed a period of time in which a uniform layer of water covered the globe, and because of this uniform layer of water, the sun would heat up the water at the equator, but it was free to circulate around the entire globe. So you could think of it as very, very acidic and toxic bath water, tepid, warmish. And you can imagine if you were to be transported, time travel back to such an era, sort of like the interstellar water world, you could imagine that your opportunity for thriving and for success would be greatly diminished relative to what we have before us now. But if you want to look at the mechanism that creates reality, it is obvious that from those beginnings to now, there has been some force acting on this planet and its species that has brought us from that common genesis to where we are today. Whatever you want to call that force, it's undeniable that there is a force. It's just a matter of, is it a sort of a passive force or is it an active force? My own belief is that it's an active force. And I believe that that is not a big logical jump to imagine that. So, whatever that force is, we ought to, I would recommend aligning ourselves with it instead of trying to work against it. And we will do best in this environment, in this biome, in this culture, if we adopt the worldview of more life to all and less to none. While there have been many people throughout history, even today, that appear to be moving contrary to such principles, and to be succeeding on the plane of competition purely for what's already been created, I still put forth that the best way for the optimal peace, happiness, contentment in this life is to work in harmony with the universe. Otherwise, you might just find yourself being a tool that the universe uses to further its purposes, even if you're not in harmony with it. Dare I use the term a useful idiot? So if you're going to be a despotic person who is trying to greedily gobble up everything that's been created as much as you can, or if you don't, someone else will. If you don't hurry, if you don't make haste, someone will outcompete you and grab what's yours. The universe might allow you to thrive, for the universe to achieve the end to its means. But someone who limits themselves to compete for what's already been created is a tool of the universe, but not in harmony with the universe. Quite simple, really. But there are controversial things we could talk about, absolutely. I listened to the Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson debate. I listened to the whole thing. People on X on both sides had good points and interesting points and feedback. But when I try to address politics, I try to consider both perspectives. And indeed, I believe that the discourse would benefit from a higher degree of civility in discourse. The dialogue would benefit from more civility. Like with Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, I felt it would have been more productive to slow down, And I wish we could normalize this. I heard a guy on the Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. I heard a guy talking about how to improve your communication, especially pertaining to conflict resolution. And he gave this one tip that I thought was so profound that I'm trying to remember to implement it in my life. And if this was implemented with political debate, it would go such a long way to improve the civility of the dialogue. The tip is this: before you jump in to answer a question or raise a point, take a breath. Imagine if you have, imagine the Tucker Carlson Ted Cruz debate. If they weren't talking over each other and yelling at each other, and if they just had a brief pause to take a breath before they spoke, would have changed the entire tone and cadence, and I believe would have resulted in a far more constructive and interesting debate. From my theological worldview, I believe there are forces out there that are trying to destroy all good things. And I believe there are forces out there that are creating all of the good things. But I don't believe any single person is an embodiment of either ideal, except for Jesus being the embodiment of good. But the interesting thing about Jesus is since he did descend below all things, I would argue that Jesus is the most important person to ever live on the earth and is the embodiment of good, but also by definition has the greatest capacity to be bad if he wanted to be. I mean, think about that. Here's a person who knows everything about our weakness, our strength. He's more intelligent than everyone, has experienced more than anyone else. If he wanted to go all, if he wanted to flip, as offensive as that concept might be to someone, if he wanted to flip, he could be the most terrible person. He has the greatest potential to become the worst person ever in history. Outside of Jesus and his power and his embodiment to be good, I don't believe any one person wholly captures the embodiment of the good or bad forces. You could argue that some positions might be good or bad, or worse or better than others. Here we are in McCall. I go 35 miles an hour, so I don't get a speeding ticket. Because these people up here, these coppers, can be very diligent. I got a ticket once for using my phone at a stop sign when no one was behind me, but a cop passed in front of me perpendicularly, looked over and saw I was I had my phone in my hand for navigation purposes. I had my phone in my hand for navigation purposes. Uh, and I got a ticket. But legal extortion is a thing because every jurisdiction, like I got a speeding ticket in North Platte, Nebraska, a speeding ticket. And every jurisdiction has an option if you use those options to get out of liability for such things. Every jurisdiction I've encountered, some might not, some might be more strict. But like in North Platte, Nebraska, I called them up and I'm like, hey, I got this speeding ticket. What are my options to make this go away? Because I do not want a speeding ticket on my record. And they said, well, if you take this safe driving course, which was like 200 bucks, it all goes away. And I'm like, wow, isn't that convenient? I'm like, this feels like legal extortion. But at least I had a path. I mean, the alternative is I could have just sat there and accepted my fate. It's also kind of coincidental that the cost of the speeding ticket was approximately the same cost as the course to remove it. So, yeah, I mean, it really did look like some sort of extortion racket. I'm going to switch to my front facing view so you can appreciate the charm of what is McCall, Idaho, on Lake Cascade. So here we are. Speed limit 25. Do not go over if you come visit. McCall, the thing is, like, they fight, evidently. I've been told, which would be obvious from what you're seeing in front of you, is that they don't want any, like, there's no McDonald's here. They don't want any, like, big brand franchise uh, sort of places, even though if there was a McDonald's up here, I think it would be incredibly successful, especially during like the summer months when, well, winter for that matter too. There's a lot of winter type sports. Anyway, that's really it. I mean, you just saw downtown McCall. That's really all there is to it. The rest of everything is just cabins and homes and residences all through the forest areas. This is the McCall Lodge. Is it called the McCall Lodge? It might be the North Shore Lodge, actually. Let's see. Let's see what it says. So we're still on Highway 55 right now. If anyone looks at a map, we're in McCall, Idaho. We just turned west at the natural bend that goes through the middle of the city. So everybody, I think this is is it called the North Shore Lodge? Did we already pass it? The hospital on our left. Ooh, I've been to that cabin. See, I used to work as a custom home theater installation technician before I started doing vehicle electronics full time again. And so I've been to quite a few of these cabins up here installing custom home theater networking, light networking. At the time, we would just run Cat 5e or Cat 6 everywhere. Of course, now people run Cat 7 or fiber or whatever. But at the time, we were do some light network running, do some on some of these cabins up here. There's a marina there, Rotary Park. I call fish hatchery. I've never been to a fish hatchery here. Yes, it's called Shore Lodge. There it is on the right. I'm still chuckling. I'm not gonna get over that. My second stream I've ever done in my vehicle, and I called it driving from Boise to Moscow. And an active duty Coast Guard person says, "Hey, bud, what you driving to Moscow for?" I hope that that was like actually checking in on me to see what I was doing, because that would be wonderful. That would that would be so fun if that's actually what was going on. I'll keep that. That would go in my journal if I was better about keeping a journal, which I'm not. My wife's really good about journaling, but I am not. Brundage Inn. Common sense is very uncommon. That is not the type of message that I would adopt for my worldview. Common sense is by definition common. And if your sense is uncommon, then it is uncommon sense. I know what they're trying to say with that message. But do you want to live in a worldview when you think that rational positions are dwindling? Nay, nay. If I believe the world is wonderful becoming, then I would have to believe that the best ideas for the day will win. Now, in my worldview, I believe in the second coming of Jesus Christ. I believe there will be times of tribulation leading up to it, wars, rumors of wars, natural disasters. Oh, if you focus on human suffering, you'll get more of it. But all human suffering is tragic by definition, by nature. There's a lot of terrible stuff out there, terrible violence, tragedy, loss, human suffering, all of it is to be lamented. All of it. There should be a really fiery debate on Piers Morgan with, it sounds like it has the potential to be constructive and meaningful, between Constantine Chris and Dave Smith, moderated by Piers Morgan. I'm very excited for that because from their rhetoric post debate, they actually had quite positive things to say about it. Piers Morgan said it was great. Dave Smith said it was great. Constantine Chris said it was great. So that's going to be fascinating, actually. I don't know if they'll approach anywhere near agreement, but I at least hope it's civil because that's incredible. Props to them. I'm very excited for that. You know, oftentimes I believe that Satan stirs up the hearts of men to contend with anger one with another, and he's kind of having his day right now. He's kind of having his heyday. I believe Jesus will come and will institute 1,000 years of peace in what we call the millennium. And Satan will be bound because of the righteousness of the people following Jesus Christ, who will reign personally upon the earth. But until then, people are going to fight and argue and contend because that's the day in which we live. But it's interesting to note that, in my view, often the contention or the means under which a discussion occurs, the mechanism by which it occurs, is often worse than the subject or points being argued. I could have fisticuffs over whether or not crunchy peanut butter is better than smooth peanut butter. Everybody knows crunchy peanut butter is better than smooth peanut butter, and it's not even close. Everybody knows that. We don't even have to argue about that. We don't even have to argue that point. Everybody knows crunchy peanut butter is better than smooth peanut butter. But let's say I wanted to argue about that. I could go to fisticuffs, be reduced to blows, punching, fighting, calling people names, using ad hominem attacks, straw man attacks. Let's do it. Let's do it. So let's say I'm fighting with someone over whether crunchy peanut butter is better than smooth peanut butter, which again, it is. We can accept that. Here's how I would do a straw man of the smooth peanut butter position. What are some ways I could straw man? Which is, I'm going to, let's see if Starling survives in this little canyon here. This is beautiful. Well, let's see if I drop signal. I don't think I'm going to drop signal. How's that? How's that? I barely even have a clear line of sight to the sky because I barely even have a clear line of sight to the sky because this canyon or forest is so dense. So here you go. I'm going to do an ad hominem and a straw man. Smooth peanut butter is better. So a straw man would be, how can I mischaracterize that view? Say, I cannot believe how can I straw man? I like smooth peanut butter. So first I have to kind of relate in order to make a straw man. So why would someone like smooth peanut butter? First of all, I would have to attack, instead of misrepresenting potentially their actual opinion, I could misrepresent their motivation to inform that opinion. So first, I would try to get them to admit their motivation, or then attack that in a way to misrepresent their position. So what could be a mischaracterization of someone's opinion of loving smooth peanut butter? Okay, okay. Here's one because we were talking about fitness earlier. Looks maxers say you can change your jawline by chewing on things. So I would say to someone who likes smooth peanut butter, I find it incredible that you seem so set on taking the path of least resistance in life. Do you really want someone who, let's say it's in a political space and we're running for office, do you want someone to lead you who's always going to take the path of least resistance? That's sort of a straw man because I would have asked a line of questioning of, wow, so it's easier to chew or consume smooth peanut butter. So I'm going to say you like the path of least resistance. You're lazy. Do you want someone like this? If I say they're lazy, that's more of an ad hominem attack because I'm attacking like their personal character. So I could combine a sort of a straw man and ad hominem by saying, I cannot believe you like smooth peanut butter because you take the path of least resistance. You're lazy. We can't have someone like this leading us, right? And then the opposition could straw man and mischaracterize ad hominem if they want to my stance and be like, okay, what's the worst attack you could get from liking crunchy peanut butter? Remove it from health. Say, oh yeah, this is easy. This is easy. Smooth peanut butter is the natural conclusion to crunchy peanut butter. Like, crunchy peanut butter is halfway to smooth peanut butter. So you can say, I cannot believe you can't finish the job. I can't believe you like crunchy peanut butter because, like your peanut butter, you can't finish the job all the way. Thereby, you're lazy. So that's like a straw man ad hominem attack. I'm like, you like crunchy peanut butter? I cannot believe you don't like to finish the job, or you like to participate. That's a pretty bad example, right? But that's what the discourse is all about. Is I see so many straw man attacks and ad hominem attacks. Oh, so let's see what happens, and then the entire argument moves away from the substance and turns into, if it's ad hominem defending their character, or addressing the straw man or the mischaracterization or the misrepresentation. But what Trump can do is control the narrative. And if someone, it's just such a good show, man. You saw this in the debate all the time in 2016. But someone would attack him and confront him about a specific fact that he lied about. He would just like, just like, bro, it was so funny. Like, Trump, you said you wear a size 13, but your cobbler says you wear a 12. And then Trump's like, your mother's a goat. Like, it's just like he wouldn't address the substance of the claim. That always bugged me as a voter. Like, I supported Ben Carson, and then Ben Carson dropped out before the Idaho primary and endorsed Trump, and I voted for Ted Cruz, I think, in the Idaho primary, and then in the general election, I voted for Trump. Because that always bugged me. I'm like, why can't Trump ever like actually present some facts or address the claim? But it's because Trump knows what gets attention wins. So why does he even want to give breath to a straw man mischaracterization or ad hominem attack on him? Why does he even want to give breath to that? Interestingly enough, I read somewhere that Trump grew up attending Norman Vincent Peale's congregation. I don't know if that's true or not, or if he grew up, or if he attended as an adult. I don't even know if that's true. I would need a fact check on that. Yeah, no, Shrek is gone, man. But hey, thanks for popping in to make sure I wasn't trying to drive to Moscow, Russia. I appreciate that. Anyway, it's interesting because I read somewhere that Trump's family used to attend Norman Vincent Peale's congregation. And Norman Vincent Peale authored the book, The Power of Positive Thinking. So I look at that kind of Trumpian way, where The Power of Positive Thinking is also a very good book for mindset that uses, I'm telling you, like, the nice thing about The Science of Getting Rich is, since it was published in 1910, it's in public domain. Anybody can use it. And I swear, books like the science, books like Think and Grow Rich. I can't remember if that came. I think it came out after The Science of Getting Rich. But Think and Grow Rich basically uses the same principles as we're in. I think we're in New Meadows right now, and we're driving west. And this is where we're going to take the turn to go north. That's going to take us through Grangeville and Lewiston and then to Moscow. And Lewiston is a paper mill that makes the entire town stink. It smells very bad in Lewiston. Unless you like the smell of paper mills, in which case it smells great. It smells kind of like low tide in a sense. Interesting fact, Lewiston, Idaho is actually an inland port. and I believe it's the farthest inland port in the United States, which would make sense because no one would really think that landlocked Idaho would have a port, but it does. And the channel goes through Washington to Idaho through a series of locks and intersteps and changes and whatever. Um, so here we go north, 65 miles an hour. We're going to go through Riggins, Whitebird, Lewiston, of course, Grangeville. Riggins is kind of a cool place. We can stream all the way. Is anyone watching this? Do we have anyone here? Yeah, it says we've got one person. Maybe it's Shrek still here. I don't know. But let's see, 65 miles an hour. Should I set a cruise control? I will, at least on this straightaway. Wish I wouldn't have drank all of my Red Bull in one go. I should have spread it out. I had some Red Bull, sugar free, the light blue one, you know. Here we go. A cashew with sea salt mukbang. Of course, mukbang for the uninitiated is watching a video of someone eat food. So I'm going to chew obnoxiously into my earbuds. But the thing is, like, I'm not discounting or downplaying evil in the world. A lot of people I know would accuse me of being naive. The secret is I actually trend towards darkness and negativity. So I've had to do a lot of training in my life in order to focus on positivity. And some days are easier than others. Elk on roadway, next 8 miles. Interesting. Maybe we'll see an elk. Anyway, it's obvious to me that a lot of these books, like The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, any of these other books, either come from the New Thought movement or were inspired by books like Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, Science of Getting Rich. Now, they can be inspired by or might not even know about it. And this is where we come back to the synchronicity of Carl Jung, as mentioned by AJ from the Y Files on his episode called Synchronicity, that just came out. Fantastic. Everybody watch it. He even talks about the New Thought movement, which is just unbelievably cool. So cool. I mean, seriously, everybody needs to watch that episode. I'm going to take like 30 seconds and I'm going to eat some cashews. And then I'll start over talking about this. I love cashews, especially if they have enough salt on them. I'm a sodium addict. I love sodium. On the left is Zim's Hot Springs. What a fine institution. That's a fun place. I've been there a few times. No elk yet. 7 a.m., the sun is shining, the grass is green. I had a brand once many years ago called Reality Stretch. I've tried to bring it back a few times, but I like Grow Kick better because Reality Stretch invites criticism from naysayers who think it sounds too conny or gimmicky, like you're a con artist. You're trying to stretch reality and not tell the truth, not say things as they really are. But that is unfair because my intent was to simply point out the malleable nature of reality. You can stretch it to be reality, but I feel better about a name like Grow Kick because increasing life implies malleable reality, whereas reality stretch could indicate that you can manipulate reality in either direction, positive or negative, which is true. You can. You can do so. But increasing life implies reality stretching, but in the direction that favors all. And there are always actions to take that are more favorable to all than others. It is best to pray and meditate and consult a higher power to both identify and take actions that will result in more life to all. So it talks about in the Science of Getting Rich. We should just listen to it, like I said. Should I download it and we'll give it a little listen? How far am I away from my destination? I was trying to be in Moscow by 9, but that's not going to happen. I'm away from my destination. Find a place to pull over and see if I can download the Science of Getting Rich. Anyway, it says, is this a private road? Do I see a no trespassing? Because this is freaking awesome. It says, public road, private property, both sides, no access to public lands. Well, because it looks so cool, let me show you what I'm seeing here. Isn't this a cool little path? I'd imagine it will. It didn't. Connection to OBS there for a minute. I was gonna show you a cool part of the trail I found, but lost my OBS connection, so I couldn't show you. But I enjoyed it myself. Oh, I'm gonna park here for a minute. Okay, what are we doing?
Man, it wasn't even Shrek that asked me if I was driving to Moscow, so that ruins my story. It was Egg Lord. Who is Egg Lord? That's hilarious. So I don't have a good story from that. Egg Lord thought I was driving to Moscow. Said, "What are we driving to Moscow for, pal?" That was still a funny way to say that. I like that. That would be quite the stream. Why do I have striping on my image with the cameras? It's coming from the actual DVR this time. Let's see what options I have to download The Science of Getting Rich. As I've mentioned previously, I like the addition from Daniel Sanchez. LibriVox. LibriVox.org. So it looks like Daniel Sanchez has also read The Science of Getting Rich, The Science of Being Well, and The Science of Being Great. I got to be honest though, I've never read The Science of Being Well and The Science of Being Great. Is that sad? Should I have done those? What, 67 megabytes? Let's do it. Let me play this summary. Chapter 17 is the summary of The Science of Getting Rich. That's too bad. X says it is unable to connect. What a shame. Let's play just the summary.
Chapter 17 of The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Daniel Sanchez. Summary of The Science of Getting Rich. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. A thought in this
Daniel Sanchez is such a gangster. What a guy. What a guy. So here, let's drive. Let's drive and listen to Daniel Sanchez. Take it away, Dan. I wish you'd give me more bio on the reader. I'd like to know more about it. Let's check this out. I have focus on my selected no more player, so I can pause it if I want to talk about it. But this is chapter 17, which is the summary of the entire book, just without stories or explanations.
Chapter 17 of The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Daniel Sanchez. Summary of The Science of Getting Rich. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe.
He talks a lot of Wallace Wattles talks about the monistic theory of the universe, and he talks about this thinking stuff because the entire approach of the book is meant to be pragmatical. So he's treating it like it's meant to be pragmatic. So he's treating it sort of like a black box here, where he's just saying there is a thinking stuff. He's like the simplest thing that he can call it to make it make sense, or just the simplest view is that it is thinking stuff. That's what it is. So uh, he doesn't need to elaborate on it. It's just he calls it a thinking stuff. That's all you need to know. All you need to know is when you think about something, you are submitting that sort of request to that thinking stuff. All right, I'll try not to interrupt now. Let's do it again. Here we go.
A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. Man can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon formless substance can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. In order to do this, man must pass from the competitive to the creative mind. Otherwise he cannot be in harmony with the formless intelligence, which is always creative and never competitive in spirit. Man may come into full harmony with the formless substance by entertaining a lively and sincere gratitude for the blessings it bestows upon him. Gratitude unifies the mind of man with the intelligence of substance, so that man's thoughts are received by the formless. Man can remain upon the creative plane only by uniting himself with the formless intelligence through a deep and continuous feeling of gratitude. Man must form a clear and definite mental image of the things he wishes to have, to do, or to become, and he must hold this mental image in his thoughts while being deeply grateful to the Supreme that all his desires are granted to him.
So he doesn't explicitly say this, Wallace Wattles, in 1910, but this is basically, in my opinion, where Wally Minto got his idea of be, do, have, rather than have, do, be, right? It's the same principle there. You know, there's that phrase. Where does this phrase come from? Where there's no vision, the people perish. Who coined that phrase? I don't know. But I mentioned earlier, you know, our ideas we have are not our own. Although, you know, when you talk about ownership and you talk about copyright protection or something like that, it's like I get it. I get what they're trying to say by that, but our ideas are not our own. I'm not streaming to X right now, so I'm gonna pull over and reset the X stream, and then I'm gonna reset this summary real quick. Let's do it. Let's see if we can get like one little good X summary of the science of getting rich or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll clip it up and post it everywhere. But I want this on X, so I'm gonna try undoing and resetting it. I just need to probably get out of this valley first. Let's try that. One step at a time. One step at a time. Oh, I could have pulled over there, but I'm still in this canyon thing. Valley. That's the interesting thing about historical geology is there's that great geologist that's like
the father of modern geology. Don't remember his name, but he made the observation that the same activities we observe today, there's no reason to suppose that they haven't continued as they are over thousands and millions of years to shape what we see. So when I see this river in this valley, the river flows the way it does. There's no reason to assume that the river has not been flowing that way for hundreds of thousands of years in order to carve the same process of erosion that we observe right now has likely occurred for hundreds of thousands of years or whatever to carve and shape it right here, right? Yeah, I got disconnected there for a minute again. I mean, it says I have good connection to the Starlink modem, but I understand that doesn't mean that the Starlink modem has clear connection to the satellites. That's why if you talk about the dark forces of that are trying to suppress everybody, the most powerful way that they can is by simply getting us to focus on disease, war, lack, the limited resources. Basically, to think small negative thoughts. If there are forces who trend towards destruction, that's what that would be their greatest influence on humanity, is to get us to believe wrong things about limited resources and limited opportunity and limited health. It's just an interesting thought. No one wants to screw you up more than Satan does, That's a fact. When talking about politics, one of my favorite things about the science of getting rich is he's got this line that basically says, like, don't rage against corrupt politicians, but be grateful for them because everything that's been done has brought you to this point where you are today. So just be grateful. Don't spend your time raging against corrupt politicians or thinking that it's up to you to save the world, or thinking that there's a bunch of people trying to oppress you and suppress you. A global cabal. Just don't. It may exist, but just don't give it your energy, man. Just don't spend your time just thinking about it. Shake off all of that negativity and embrace your creative potential. If everybody did this together, just focused on creating and focused on abundance, the world would be such a different place. But that is what the world is. That's what we learn. The world is wonderful. Say that. Because it is. It's true. If you believe in God and you believe He's a good God and He's powerful, then you would have to believe that He's going to win. And if you don't think you can make it, then you're doubting not yourself. You're doubting God for miscreating you or not being the best planner. I mean, even in the Quran, there were a bunch of bunch of Muslims in South Africa while I was there, and we were talking about scripture, and like there's this Quran verse that says in English, like Satan planned, but Allah planned, and Allah is the best of planners. I'm like, dude, man, that's the coolest verse of any scripture I've ever heard anywhere. Nah, it's not true, not anywhere. But that's a really, 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 really important concept, and it's really, really, really cool. So that's rad. Whoa, this road sucks, dude. Bro, no, bro. I didn't pop a tire. It's gonna be rough to get back on the road too, because there's like a small cliff. All right. So we've got the science of getting rich. The summary of the science of getting rich. It's chapter 17. Science of Getting Rich, published in 1910. Audiobook from LibriVox, read by Daniel Sanchez. Let's get through this chapter and discuss as we go, huh? The chapter is only 3.5 minutes long. Again, it's a summary of the whole topics discussed in them. What, are we connected again? Let's check the streams. Rocks, 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 don't pop a tire. Don't pop a tire. Don't pop a tire. Oh, good. Oh, yeah, I don't even have my jack and my tire change kit with me. But I do have a full size spare, but not very useful if you can't do anything with it. Alright, we got The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, published in 1910, read by Daniel Sanchez, uploaded to LibriVox.org. Chapter 17, the summary of The Science of Getting Rich. Take it away, Daniel Sanchez.
Chapter 17 of The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Daniel Sanchez. Summary of The Science of Getting Rich. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. Man can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon formless substance can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. In order to do this, man must pass from the competitive to the creative mind. Otherwise he cannot be in harmony with the formless intelligence, which is always creative and never competitive in spirit. Man may come into full harmony with the formless substance by entertaining a lively and sincere gratitude for the blessings it bestows upon him. Gratitude unifies the mind of man with the intelligence of substance, so that man's thoughts are received by the formless.
I like how he said lively gratitude. I've never really noticed that until now. Maintains a lively gratitude. Interesting.
Man can remain upon the creative plane only by uniting himself with the formless intelligence through a deep and continuous feeling of gratitude. Man must form a clear and definite mental image of the things he wishes to have, to do, or to become, and he must hold this mental image in his thoughts while being deeply grateful to the Supreme that all.
Interesting phrasing there. He even said right there to have, to do, or to become, which is exactly the same progression that we talked about, albeit the natural reversal of it, um, that I was talking about Wally Minto doing his courses in the 70s. And I think I read this first, I want to say from Robert Kiyosaki, saying that he used to go to and pay for all courses that were available to him. And he went to one once where they said, be, do, have, rather than have, do, be. I think I read that in Robert Kiyosaki's either Cash Flow Quadrants or Rich Dad Poor Dad. Provocative. So I'll bet Robert Kiyosaki went to one of Wally Minto's courses, or someone else was at least learning these things and teaching them in parallel, just like the Y-Files guy AJ was just talking about with Carl Jung's synchronicity. Not one person seems to have a monopoly on a good idea. It just seems to be distributed to the zeitgeist, but only to those who are in tune with it. That's why I urge such caution. When your mind must put forth a profound and deep and continuous feeling of gratitude, that's why it's so dangerous to be so addicted to controversy and anger and hate. Be very recognize attempted manipulation from any source that claims any individual or group of individuals is wholesale evil. That applies on the right, the left, the top, the bottom, the forward, the backwards. Be very wary of any group that gains their cohesion from condemning or gains their cohesion from the condemnation of other entities. Mother Teresa is rumored to have said that she would not attend an anti-war rally because that just perpetuates more war. Because the focus to the universe is on the subject of war. But if ever anyone had a pro-peace rally, she would attend. It says in The Science of Getting Rich that medicine is a science of disease, perpetuates disease. Again, the universe doesn't care about the polarity of your intent, whether you want it or don't want it. It just focuses on the subject. So if you focus on things you don't want, you'll get more of what you don't want. If you focus on things you do want, you'll get more of what you do want. And an example of this is what I talked about earlier on the stream of I want to be healthier. So instead of saying I need to lose weight, then the subject is on weight and I get more of weight. So instead, I've adopted this little phrase that I repeat to myself as often as I think of it, saying, I am fit, I am lean, I am athletic. And that's to train my mindset to be in a space. And I'm grateful that I am fit, I am lean, I am athletic. It helps to have a trained mindset. So I'm working on training. All right, let's keep going.
The man who wishes to get rich must spend his leisure hours in contemplating his vision and in earnest thanksgiving that the reality is being given to him. Too much stress cannot be laid on the importance of frequent contemplation of the mental image, coupled with unwavering faith and devout gratitude. This is the process by which the impression is given to the formless and the creative forces set in motion. The creative energy works through the established channels of natural growth and of the industrial and social order. All that is included in his mental image will surely be brought to the man who follows the instructions given above and whose faith does not waver. What he wants will come to him through the ways of established trade and commerce. In order to receive his own when it shall come to him, man must be active, and this activity can only consist in more than filling his present place. He must keep in mind the purpose to get rich through the realization of his mental image, and he must do every day all that can be done that day, taking care to do each act in a successful manner. He must give to every man a use value in excess of the cash value he receives, so that each transaction makes for more life.
That's key right there. He talks about a chapter in the book is actually titled Increasing Life, which was, again, where I got the idea to make that Celtic Knot logo with an up arrow, and a heart. Increasing life. But he also talks in the book about becoming an advancing man or an advancing person. Because if you are going places and if you're creating actively your reality, when people interact with you, they will get the vibe that, hey, this person is going somewhere. And if I go with them, I'll go too. This person, by associating with them, will also help me get to where I want to go. The people will sense that. He calls it in the book the advancing thoughts or the advancing man or something. But that's what coincides with when he says you must fill more than your present place. You must be a net contributor to society. You must be. There was a networking group I used to be a part of called Business Networking International, BNI. And they had the catchphrase that I just really loved called Giver's Gain. So again, this is the final chapter of the book, and it's a summary of the entire book. So if you were to take any one phrase of this summary, you can go back and read more about it in the prior 16 chapters.
And he must so hold the advancing thought that the impression of increase will be communicated to all with whom he comes in contact. The men and women who
The advancing thought. And again, he says that you must have a definite vision of what exactly it is that you want. Because he says in the book that if you're going to send a letter to a friend, you wouldn't send all of the words in the letter jumbled up and expect them to rearrange it. And he says the universe is the same. Why would you? Well, he's going to talk about the definiteness of vision here in a minute.
practice the foregoing instructions will certainly get rich, and the riches they receive will be in exact proportion to the definiteness of their vision, the fixity of their purpose, the steadiness of their faith, and the depth of their gratitude. End of chapter 17. End.
Thank you, Daniel Sanchez. The definiteness of their vision, the fixity of their purpose. Did he go straight to the depth of their gratitude? Let's listen again.
Of the cash value he receives, so that each transaction makes for more life.
More
And
life.
he must so hold the advancing thought that the impression of increase will be communicated to all with whom he comes in contact. The men and women who practice the foregoing instructions will certainly get rich, and the riches they receive will be in exact proportion to the definiteness of their vision, the fixity of their purpose, the steadiness of their faith, and the depth of their gratitude.
Right. That's worth
End
memorizing.
of chapter 17.
That's worth memorizing. The definiteness of their vision, the fixity of their purpose. What is it? The strength of their faith? No, that's not right. The steadiness of their faith and the depth of their gratitude. Riggins is a good outdoors place. I don't know if these people are fishing or putting in here to go whitewater rafting, but there are a lot of vehicles lined up for something. Looks like fishing. I would say fishing. Look at all these RVs. Are people standing there or just storing their crap there? Looks like they're just storing their crap there. Riggins is a nice, wild place. Oh, man. But there you have it. But I recommend the whole book. Again, the audiobook, look for version 2 by Daniel Sanchez on LibriVox. That's my favorite. Great job, Daniel Sanchez. I wish I could track you down and I'd interview you if you were interested. That would be cool. Anyway. Ah, man. It's a great book. It's only a 2-hour audiobook. You can pretty much listen to it every morning if you wanted to train your mindset. I was gonna say something else, but it's gone, bro. It's gone. The train left the station. It's not coming back. Anyway, though, since this brand increasing life, Grow Kick is the brand. It's like a kick to growth. That's what this whole thing's supposed to be, a kick to growth. Grow Kick. It's a Grow Kick. Grow Kick. You know, kick. That's why I made that video about kicking stuff. I should make more videos like that because it's fun. But the point is, I gotta find a way to make this lighthearted and humorous to teach and impress upon one's mind with emotion, but the emotions of humor, love, light. Light isn't really an emotion, but use positive emotions, right? Because it's like Monsters Inc., where they were accomplishing everything with fear, and then they switched to laughter, and it was even more powerful than screams. What a great message in that movie. So it would be quite cheap and easy to take low hanging fruit just to get eyeballs and be controversial, and to just pick what the controversy of the day is and start calling some people evil and some people bad. That would be the easy route to gain viewers, but I am too much of a humanitarian whereby I just love humanity. And I think every single person has some good and some bad. And much of the issues we have in society are due to misunderstanding. There are some people who are actually malicious, but even they are probably just motivated and acting out of a twisted view of the world, as the supply is limited, or they're in the competitive frame, or they think humans are going to overpopulate and destroy the planet, so less humans are good, so they justify all sorts of atrocities. You get my point. I'm tired. I think I'm going to pull over and chill for a couple of minutes. Maybe shut my eyes for 15 minutes and then keep going. But here we are in Riggins. I'll show you what Riggins looks like. It should be busy. It should be popping this time of year. Should be. Anyway, everybody has some bad and some good. Nobody is wholly an embodiment of good or bad, other than, like I said, Jesus is an embodiment of good. That's fair. But outside of Jesus, no one else is a wholesale embodiment of good or bad. All right, this is downtown Riggins. Let me change the scene. There we go. Yeah, I'm seriously just gonna pull over and have like a 15-minute nap. I'll stream again when I'm going through Whitebird or Grangeville or Lewiston. It seems to be working better this time than it did last time, which is great, actually. Yeah, I feel like I'm about to pass out. Even though I had two Red Bulls, I have such a high tolerance to caffeine that it really just helps me focus when I drink it. And I kid you not, sometimes back when I used to have more caffeine like late at night, sometimes I could take caffeine and then like go to sleep and have one of the best sleeps ever. Like I don't know why, it's just I have a super high tolerance for the stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna pull over, have a little break, rest my eyes, stretch my legs, and thanks for being on this drive with me. This has been real fun for me. So I might start streaming again in a little bit. Had a couple people doing some comments. I'm not driving to Moscow, Russia. I'm driving to Moscow, Idaho. And we'll chat with you guys soon.